Well, our breaking news this hour from Statistics South Africa, our unemployment rate decreasing marginally from 31.9% to 31.4%. That's in the last 3 months of last year. Professor Peter Baur is an associate professor at the University of Johannesburg School of Economics. Professor, good afternoon to you and thank you for your time. We've seen over the last few months a slight increase of the number of people in employment and a slight decrease in the number of people who are formally employed. Do these numbers tie in with that trend? And I realize it's very easy to drown in numbers with these releases.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much. The labour force participation rate just literally includes both the employed and unemployed, as well as the people that are actually actively seeking work. And then for South Africa's case, we're definitely seeing a greater level of labour force participation rate, but at the same time, it means also the unemployment levels coming down in South Africa is a really good sign, and it ties up as well with the economic growth that we're experiencing in South Africa now, which is actually a really good sign leading forward. So potential for continued economic growth and decreasing unemployment is definitely very in line with what we should be expecting right now, and also associated with a decrease in interest rates, allowing for greater capital investment within the economy, and of course, a very strong positive association given the international trends right now brought on by the Trump administration.
So, I mean, just to be clear, and I get lost in numbers, I'm afraid, Prof, so forgive me, but we have the percentage of people who are unemployed going down. Does that mean that the number of people who are unemployed is also going down?
Correct. In that sense, absolutely. But we have a number of different definitions that we also need to remember. We have an expanded definition, we have an official definition, etc. So we're talking right now on the official definition. The expanded definition is a lot broader. Here we do not really, there are in the whole economy, there are active job seekers. And a big problem that we've had in the past is people not actively seeking work. And this became a sort of a relationship between the state of the economy and how people were looking or feeling about how our economy was growing. Currently, we're seeing more people obviously being employed in the sector. The expanded definition, of course, goes much higher. And then, of course, we need to also remember the relationship between the youth unemployment, the young people who are exiting, shall we say, school, just at the age where they would be entering into the labor market. A greater deal, something in the region of like 50 odd percent, are actually struggling to still find work. So young people entering into the economy, longer periods of time unemployed, and still a major concern for South Africa. And that is really where we have a key challenge. Another issue is gender discrepancies as well. We find that the women who are finding themselves in a situation of unemployment remain unemployed for longer periods of time. And I think in our State of Our Nation address, there was a large focus towards reducing the inequality and especially around gender and gender inequality too. So in order for us to really deal with some of these challenges, we need to focus again heavily on what we can do to further strengthen youth unemployment, which is way up, and use that to bolster towards the economy, especially because the youth unemployed are actually the youth technically, if they were employed, would be contributing significantly to the economy. And it's also at the stage in their lives and careers where they need to start building a future for themselves. And so youth unemployment is a critical figure for South Africa.
There are lots of, as you say, lots of different ways to measure employment and to define employment. And there's an endless argument, and I think it will go on forever, about formal jobs and the informal sector in South Africa. Does this survey properly capture what's happening in the informal sector? What I'm trying to get to is people who create their own income, they're selling something, they're washing cars, they're doing something for money. Can we see how both of these, the informal and the formal economy, they're both the real economy, but can we tell if the informal economy is sort of growing at the same rate as the formal economy, if I can put it like that?
Very, very difficult question to answer. We do a lot of research in the cultural economy of South Africa, and we saw specifically that many of them fall within that informal economy. The informal economy, unfortunately, is very big within South Africa. The real extent I think is often a academic guess to really measure. But the informal economy takes up a great many people who fall through the system. The social security benefits, for example, do not always benefit those people in that informal economy. And then within the informal economy, we also take a look at people who are coming in, shall we say, in terms of migration into South Africa. We're talking about the rural-urban migration as well coming into the region. And so a great many people who fall into the informal sector, the informal sector acts as kind of a safety net, if we can use that term, picking up those that are not going to be captured by shall we say, the social safety security systems that we have in place. And that is a big concern for us. However, it does play a significant role in our economy because it does provide a great many jobs. The informal economy doesn't necessarily have to be completely illegal. It doesn't need to have to be associated with crime, for example, but it does play a big role in providing opportunities where the official or the formal economy doesn't always play a sufficient of a role to support these people.
We see, I mean, the green shoots and what we've been looking for such a long time, Professor, the green shoots of sort of economic growth and that, because you can, and we have had sort of periods of some growth without a sort of increase in employment. Is it possible to know what's changed this time, he says optimistically, and what it would take to continue this progress in terms of creating jobs? I mean, is it easy to spot that?
Again, this is, a really, really complicated initiative. And much of the answers associated with the kind of skills that are required by the different sectors of the economy. Right now, if we take a look at South Africa's building and strengthening relationships with, for example, China, building relationships with the European Union, greater opportunities for an export-related market. Also, again, the strengthening of the rand, imports are becoming a lot more cheaper, and of course that's also strengthening the manufacturing sector, which is creating additional opportunities. So strengthening within the different sectors, such as, for example, manufacturing, construction, industries, and then of course your craft sectors, etc., all play significant roles in contributing, but many of them are tied up with kind of skills that the different sectors require. For example, service sector would probably lean more likely towards a higher skilled level, as opposed to, shall we say, mining or even agriculture. So the relationship between skills and the people that are being employed is fundamentally important, and the kind of employment that they're going to get. And then, of course, this is now going to associate itself very strongly with, for example, the changing minimum wages that we have seen recently announced earlier this year, also supporting these people. So in sense, what we should be focusing on is strengthening our policies in terms of the economic support mechanisms for small businesses and entrepreneurs, streamlining the process as much as possible to allow, shall we say, entrepreneurial activities within that informal sector. And for many, even though the process itself, registering yourself as a business, is not a complicated process, it's often seen as a constraint and a restriction for many people who don't necessarily understand that process. So we need to dedicate a lot more attention and resources towards supporting our entrepreneurial development and the small business development, which is actually contributing more directly with households and household sustainability.
There's so many aspects to this, Professor Baur, as you know better than I do. But I mean, some things that have changed are very important. The lights are on most of the time, unless you live in an area with load reduction. And that's been a big change for our economy, and maybe we're starting to see that. The thing that hasn't necessarily changed is crime and violence, and the fear that if you try and start a small business to do that, you need to actually be able to keep your things safe. And that must be such a handbrake on growing our economy.
Absolutely. Our president did raise that in the Stone Address. The issues of crime and corruption and all those associated factors are a definite significant impact, but it's not just in terms of affecting the businesses directly, but indirectly in terms of associations with investment into the economy. If we better managing our crime situation, better managing especially organized crime, these are key factors that would probably promote a much stronger investor confidence within South Africa. We're seeing in terms of business confidence definitely shows signs of improvement, and investor confidence, South Africa is definitely putting itself in a very significant position right now. But the key issue is if we want to develop our investment, we want to grow our economy, then we really need to look at stabilizing that social element within the economy to better protect our business owners, our entrepreneurs, and the overall, shall we say, investment climate within the country.
Professor Peter Baur, I really do appreciate the time, sir. Thank you very much indeed. An associate professor at the University of Johannesburg's School of Economics. Just